And welcome back to the Bridget Mabandla College here in Pretoria. And this is, of course, the seat of the Madlanga Commission. It's day 36 today. And from last week, we're going to move on to something slightly different, because last week we heard the much anticipated testimony of Brown Mogotsi. And now we understand today there'll be a focus on what happened during the arrest of Katie Molefe, and of course a lot already being said about that, but just coming back to that particular issue, and Canny and I will talk more about that in the next crossing. But for right now, we've got she's become our resident expert here on SABC News and Morning Live. Professor Rakubu, thank you so much for coming through once again. And let's talk about Brown Mogotsi from last week. So very interesting, the claims that Mogotsi made, but listening to his testimony, what was your reading of Brown?
Thank you for having me. An interesting week that I termed Brownigma week. It was a very frustrating week. From what he said, he literally strengthened Mkhwanazi's allegations. He highlighted the magnitude of this infiltration that we've been talking about. South Africans got to hear of contact agent, a handler, informant. So we got to hear of the chakalaka that is in the crime intelligence, unnecessary chakalaka, if I were to put it that way. And again, we got to hear of an unsubstantiated evidence. There was no proof of travels, proof of communication. We got to gossip last week. We got to restructure, redirect, and also we received the biggest conspiracy theory wherein a particular king was also thrown into the deep end, and where now credibility of Mkhwanazi was also tried here and there. We were thrown into the CIA agent matter, unnecessary allegations here and there. But all in all, he tried so hard to shift or to shield Kunu and Sibia, but pushed them under the bus extensively so, because he confirmed the association. In principle, he confirmed the relations. We got to understand of the meetings that were not recorded. We got to understand of the meetings outside Mkhunu's office, and also the commission did excellently well to put him to task, because at some point they had to reprimand him to focus and not continue to make unsubstantiated allegations. And he came in as a witness that did not do thorough research, because he would still claim to have communicated with cats, and also tried to vindicate Mkhwanazi, and also tried to protect Sibia, but the protection did him dirty, because now we understand, and South Africans got to understand, who's this handler and what kind of handling was this? How do you become a contact agent, if indeed he was? Were there records where he was identified as because you can be an informant on a particular case and then move. But it looks like the way he was articulating was like a particular employee. And at that point, the commission had to sit and listen to someone who's coming in to say, I had the best interest in the justice system. However, I had financial gains. I pushed my own financial agenda. And we still had to listen to such a person who comes in and lie under oath and lie. There was evidence that now this person claimed to be from the minister's office, yet we still had to listen to give him chance and time to connive, to take us back and forth, because he said so many things at some point I could not even follow.
So if we listen to the substance that you've just pointed to, if we look at Brown Mogotsi's demeanor throughout his testimony, the question then arises, what motivated him to frame his account in the manner in which he
He
did?
wanted to act very smart. He knows he's in trouble, but the strategy he came with is to just confuse South Africans and also to try by all means to shield the two other controversial figures, like I said, Mkhunu and Sibiya. And
Would you say that's
yes,
his
because he
motivation?
tried to separate himself from, but the collateral damage in all of that was Vusmusket Matlala, who then now everybody's saying no. Cat said this, so apparently Cat has nothing to lose because already is inside. But then he became what? The collateral damage, and now Mkhunu did not phone me, Mkhunu did not give me information, Sibiya did right, so and so did right, General Canny did right, but when now he has to substantiate or corroborate, there was nothing that he could utilize, right?
So one of the other questions I had listening to Brown Mogotsi was, of course, what does the Commission do with what they've heard, what they've seen? And when he speaks, for example, of being a contact agent and having a handler or handlers, does the Commission have a responsibility to follow up and test the veracity of those assertions?
Last week had a very questionable testimony. Then now, how do you deal with questionable testimony of controversial figures like that? You corroborate, right? You can even go deeper to verify. But then he came in with nothing. Remember, other witnesses made the Commission's work very simple, where there was proof of this and that, receipts. He did not have anything. The Commission at this stage has so much on the table to also recommend prosecution, because how are you a handler? Who was your handler? With your caliber, who qualifies to be a handler? What kind of cases were you handling? And were you verified to be a handler? Which cases did you? And again, access to the ministry, access to information, right? How did you get to that? So it has to corroborate. At some point, expert will have to come in to clarify. Do we have contact agents in South Africa, or do we have informants? Because now he comes in to even confuse South Africans to say, I was. No.
Yeah, we are very confused. We are very confused right now about whatever Brown Mogotsi said. So to that confusion, does the Commission now go out and say, Brown Mogotsi said he has a handler? And do they now go back to Brown and say, Brown, who is your handler? And then go and verify.
It has to go to that extent. If indeed there is a handler, who's going to publicly admit that I was Brown Mogotsi's handler?
But should they? Could they? Or is this something that could happen in camera?
It should, and that could happen in camera as well. But during his testimony, I don't know if he was aware, because he's a very reckless person, especially when he tries to corroborate, narrate, and so forth. For a minute, I thought Sibiya is the handler. For a minute, he took me there, right? And then, because the way he tried to substantiate information that he could utilize, I heard from General Sibiya that. That's what he would say. I spoke to General Sibiya. General Sibiya did not, with so much confidence, when it comes to certain actions, certain activities, or certain decisions, right? But then the Commission will have to verify. If now this person had financial interest, do we go after suspect to get money? And to openly say, no, I agree, I send the text to Ket Matlala, who is the major interest in multiple cases as a handler, not as a handler, as a contact agent or as an informant. Are you even allowed to gain or to source money from such a figure? You are not allowed, because obviously there are intelligence acts that pushes one to behave in a particular way, and not everybody can be a handler. You work on this table, and then when it ends, you move. But from where and can this contact agent be in to investigate commissioners? Because his interest, commissioners. If you listened, his major targets were commissioners. Khumalo talking to Mkhwanazi, that was a major interest, and why? Why as a handler? Why not as a handler? Why as a contact agent would you come and lead and deal with such figures?
And have access to sensitive information at points?
It's strategically placed to provide you that sensitive information. It was just not an ordinary handler, the so-called handler. And as a handler, how do you deal, how do you identify your informants?
And then, of course, one of the things that he also spoke to, which I guess is not in dispute, is the factional battles within the South African Police Service. But in terms of his testimony, what do you think, what sort of light did he shed on that particular aspect?
The magnitude of this division, the magnitude of power struggles. It's clear of the camp of the Kabali he served. From his testimony, there was nothing wrong with Khan, General Khan, Sibiya, and others. There's everything wrong with Mkhwanazi, Khumalo, and Masemola, right? Remember, he tried to throw Masemola under the bus, Qele under the bus. So it's clearly he clearly narrated and assisted South Africans to understand who belongs where and how was he an agent specifically eyeing a particular the camp that was against what we know now.
And just a final question with regard to perjury, because it was clear from the evidence and from the questions that were asked by the senior counsel, by the commissioners, that Brown Mogotsi was lying at will. So lying under oath, where does that leave South Africa now? The agencies that need to act, do they now act on this person who has perjured himself? What needs to unfold?
South Africans, I'm sure, are waiting for the commissions to recommend on that, because that is agent. He lied under oath. He agreed to lie under oath. So what more do you want? Because now you need to recommend this man must be dealt with legally. We do not need to bring him back to verify. No, he gave us all that we want, and his testimony from the beginning, the minute he then identified Ket Matlala as John Wick, and then now you source money from the so-called John Wick, and now you raise your hand to claim to be an informant. An informant cannot be associated with John Wick, so it ends there. And then now you come and agree to lying about you being from the minister's office. So what next do we need from you? Because you've just highlighted, you've just all the elements of perjury you clearly specified. So there's no more information that should be sourced from you. You are unreliable. He even lied about his birth. He couldn't remember his date of birth or year of birth or something like that. He even threw a fiancé under the bus to say, hey, I took the money, but please go after her. You understand? So what more do you need from such a person that says, yes, 3 million came in and it says Brown, but there can be a mistake. So banks made mistakes with transfers.
This very serious matter, Professor Rakubu, thank you so much. But we laugh because this is how the testimony came across last week. It was so difficult to, at some point, be serious about it because it was just one lie after the next. And when I say lie, it was actually proven during the testimony of Brown Mogotsi by the senior counsel that what you are saying has no basis in truth. But of course, that is what we heard last week from Brown Mogotsi. It was much anticipated and it did not disappoint. So we wait to hear who's coming back today. Did I say coming back? Okay, maybe I heard something, but we'll verify for you in terms of the witness that will take the stand today. But it has to do with Katiso Molefe and what happened when he was arrested at his Sandhurst home. So that's where we're going to leave it for now. Back to you in studio, Leanne.